Hi everyone, Ravi this side. Welcome to Engineering Adda. So today in this video we are going to see the difference between @controller advice and @rest controller advice annotation in Spring Boot. There is a video on my channel where I have covered @rest controller advice, how to use it and why we are using it and what is the rest controller advice annotation. So everything I have covered in that video. So if you are new to this channel, just go and watch that video first. And then here we are going to see the difference between controller advice and rest controller advice annotation. So both of the annotation are used to globally handle the exception in a Spring Boot application. But there is a difference between both of the annotation. There is a video on my channel where I have covered the difference between controller and the rest controller annotation in Spring Boot. So there I have told you that the controller plus response body equal to rest controller annotation. Similarly here controller advice plus response body annotation, what makes the rest controller advice annotation. Okay, so basically this controller advice annotation is used in the Spring MVC and it can also be used in the Spring RESTful services. Okay, but this rest controller advice is basically meant for the Spring RESTful services. Okay, so this is what the basic difference between both of the annotation. Now I will try to show you what is the real difference in the implementation and how we can implement both of them. So let me try to open the IntelliJ and try to create one Spring Boot application here. So what I will do, I will try to create one Spring Boot application. There I will try to cover, let's say two APIs. One is to find all the record from the database and another is to insert one record into the database. So we can like I'm going to create a Spring Boot application which will be having two APIs. One is to insert the product into the DB and another is to find all the product inserted into the DB. Okay, and here I'm not going to use the any databases. So basically, let me try to first create the application and try to show you those things. So if you'll go to the file new and go to the project, and here you will find the Spring Initializer. I'm using IntelliJ Ultimate version. That is why this option is available here. If you're not using IntelliJ Ultimate version, you can go to this website which is start.spring.io and there you can create your Spring Boot application and download the zip file and then unzip it here. Okay. So in this application, we are going to basically develop two APIs. One is to insert the product into the DB and another is to find the inserted product, all the inserted product from the DB. But we are not going to use any database here. So what we'll do, we'll try to create one static final list and in that list we'll be inserting the records or the products and then we'll try to fetch out that list from the uh, we'll try to fetch out that list when we are fetching out all the records from the DB. So that is what we are going to do. So we are not going to use any database here. So let me try to do those things. So let's say the application name is REST controller advice versus controller advice. Okay, select the Maven here. So go next and we are going to use the Lombok, we are going to use the web and that's it. So this is the video about the difference between the REST controller advice and the controller advice. So that is why we are just not going to show how to connect with the database and all those things. We are simply going to create one static list and there we'll try to insert the record and fetch the record from that. So that is what we are going to do here. So our application is downloading all the dependency that we have included and here you can see those things. So it will take few seconds to do those things and then once it is done, we can start development. So if you'll go to the source, go to the main, here you'll find the folder Java, go inside it and let's say I'm going to create the entity product first. So let's say entity dot product. So let me try to create the private entity teaser ID, private string name, private uh, string or double price, something like that, price, and private int quantity. Okay, so let me try to use the wrapper class here. You can use any of them, either primitive or the wrapper. So we are good now. Now let me try to annotate this class with at the rate all argument and no argument and data for the getter and setter. Okay, so we are good. Now let me try to create the service package here. So we are not going to use any database. That is why I'm not going to implement the repo or the DIO layer. Directly we are going to create the service class. We are not going to implement the service method in the interface. Sorry, we are not going to create a service interface. We are directly going to create the implementation class for the service. Okay, so let me try to create the package service dot product service class. Sorry, let me try to refactor it, and let's say the package name is service, and let me try to create the class called product service here. Okay, now let me try to annotate this class with at the rate service annotation so that its bin can be created and assigned to the application context. So wherever we want, we can inject it. So we are good now. Now let me try to create a list here. Okay, so let's say private static final list of product. Let me try to import the list, and let's say the list name is products and its implementation is array list. So we have created one list here which is containing the products. Okay, now what I will do, I will use the post construct annotation to load couple of products into the list or insert couple of product into the list when we are starting our application. So when we'll start the application, this post construct will be running, and then it will try to run the codes inside it, and then uh, once that code will be run, this product list that we have created would be having couple of recordings in it. Okay, so let me try to create a method here. So private void init, and here let me try to create one product, and let's say product ID is 1, and let's say name is mobile, and let's say the price is 20,000 and quantity is 1. So I have created one product. Now what I will do, I will try to add this product to the list that we have created above, which is products. So just do this dot products dot add product. Okay, so when our application will be running, this list would be having one product which is ID is 1, mobile, and price is this, and the quantity is this. Okay, so we are good now. Now let me try to create the methods here. So one method will create to find all the products from the list, and second is to insert the product into the list. So here we are not going to use the database, that is why we are replacing the database with the list here. So every operation will be performed on the list itself. So let me try to create that method here. So let's say the method is public list of product and get products this dot products. Okay, and then simply return it. So this method is returning the list of product. Now copy this, and we are going to insert one product into the list. So insert product, and here we have to pass the product that we are going to insert. Now we have to add this to the list. So this dot products dot add product, and then simply return it. Sorry, simply return the product that you have added. So let me try to do that. Return the product. Either you can find it from the list and return it, or you can directly return it. So these two methods we have created. Now let me try to create a controller so that we can access this method inside it. And where comes the use of controller advice and rest controller advice is when the exception is raised inside it. Okay, so let me try to create the controller first and then try to show you the scenario where the picture of controller advice and the rest controller advice come into the picture. Okay, so here let me try to create the package called controller, and let me try to create a class called product controller, and let me try to annotate this with at the rate rest controller. Okay, and I'm not going to use the request mapping directly. I'm going to create the method level mappings. So first is products, which is a get mapping which will be accessing the get products method of this service. So copy this, come here to the product controller. Now let me try to auto wire the reference of the product service. So auto wire private product service, and let me try to create a method which will be returning the list of product, and let me try to import the product here and the list as well, and let's say this method name is get all products, and inside that, with the help of product service reference that we have auto wired, we are going to call the get all products method and then simply return it. Why it is not coming here? Okay, so it is get products. So we are good now. Now let me try to create the mapping for insert product. Okay, so this time it would be post mapping. Okay, and let's say the URL would be insert. Let me try to import the post mapping here, and let's say the method name is insert, and the return type would be the product that we are going to insert. Okay, and here in the argument we need to pass the product as a payload, or you can say request body. So let me try to annotate this request body. We have to pass the product here, and the same product we are going to insert into the insert method. Okay, so we are good now. Why it is? Okay, let me try to response body. Okay, so this should be request body, not response body. So request body. So we are good. We have created this post mapping to insert the product into the list, and we are passing the product reference that we are going to insert as a payload or as a request body, and then that we are passing it to the insert method of the product service class. Okay, so finally this will be coming here, and then this will be inserted into the list that we have created above. Now let's say when we are going to insert the product, okay, and let me try to show you. Let me try to hit this application first, and then we'll try to show you the scenario. Okay, so why we are getting this error here? If we'll go to the product service, this is good. Product controller, why we are getting? Let me try to run this application first and try to hit these APIs and then see if they are working fine or not. Then we'll introduce the scenario where we'll be raising the exception, and then comes the picture of REST controller advice and controller advice annotation. Okay, so what is the error? Unsatisfied dependency exception, error creating bean. Okay, so product service, we have post construct, we have this public method which is list of this and this. Now when we are going here to the product controller, and we are good with the product also. We are good with the product service as well. This service is also here. Now come here to the product controller, and we have annotated this class with @REST controller. Now if you want to auto wire it, it should be auto wired. I'm not sure why it is not auto wiring. Incorrect auto wiring in the spring beans component. Now if you'll see here, these two packages are outside of the scope of the spring. Okay, so that is why it is not able to look into those packages and scan it and create the bin for it. You can see the controller is inside it, but this entity and the services are outside. So that is why it is not able to scan it and create the bin for it. So explicitly you have to provide the component scan, and you have to provide the base packages or URL for this packages where it is located. Then it can, or Spring can, create the bin for it and assign that bin to the application context. But here we are not doing that. So let me try to cut it from here and let me try to paste it inside this and then see. So now it is inside, and let me try to go inside the product service, and yeah, we are good. Go to the entity, it is also good. And if you'll go to the controller this time, I think the error would be gone. You can see this. So everything is fine now. Now let me try to run this application and try to hit the API first. And then I will try to show you the scenario where the exception will be raised, and then REST controller advice and controller advice annotation will come into the picture. And then we'll try to show the difference between both of them through the implementation. So this application is up. If we'll go to the Postman, let me try to go to the IntelliJ first and then see. So our application is locally up on the port number 8080, and to get all the products, the API is slash products. So let me try to go to the Postman and let's say 8080, and this time let's say find all. 8080 slash products. Okay, so just hit it, and you can see we are able to see one product, and that product we have not inserted. Like with the post construct, it is inserting into the list when the application is running. Like once the application runs, this post construct load the product into the product list that we have created. Here you can see, right? So as of now we have only one product into the list. Now let me try to hit the insert API and try to insert one more product. So if we'll go to the insert, and the URL would be localhost 8080 slash insert. So let me try to remove this product, and let's say the ID is 2, and let's say the name is laptop, and the price is 80,000 and the quantity is 1. If you'll send it, you can see the second product is also inserted. If you'll come here to the find all and try to hit the find all API, then you can see two products are there. Okay, so everything or both of the APIs are working fine as of now. But let me try to show you one scenario. What if we are providing the name product name as a null? Then also it will try to insert it into the list. But in that scenario, it should not be inserting that product into the list. We should be validating the name. The name should not be null, or we can validate any of the attributes that is there in the product entity. So this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to validate the name, product name. When we are going to insert the product into the list, it will be validating the name. If the name is null, then it will be throwing one exception, and that exception will be controlled or handled by the controller advice and the REST controller advice. And there I will try to draw the picture between both of them. Okay, so let me try to go to the Postman, and here let me try to insert the third product. So let's say the product ID is 3, and this time we are going to insert the name as null, and let's say the price is 80,000 and the quantity is 1. So if you hit enter, you can see this is also inserted. Even the name is null, this is inserted because we have not validated the name or any field. Okay, if you'll go to the product find all product, you can see this is inserted. So this should not be the ideal case, right? So we should be validating each and every field, but here for the sake of showing how to handle the exception, I'm just going to validate the name. Okay, so let me try to go to the IntelliJ, and let me try to go to this application, go to the controller, and let's say when we are going to insert the product, we are just going to validate the name here. So let's say if product dot get name double equal to null, then it should be throwing a exception. Okay, then throw a null pointer exception. Okay, null pointer exception, and say that product name cannot be null. Okay, so that exception we are throwing. We are throwing a null pointer exception, and the message is coming as product name cannot be null. If it is not the case, the name is not null, then it would be inserted into the list, and then we are returning the product. That is what we are doing. Now we have thrown the exception, so we should be throwing the exception out of this method as well. So throws null pointer exception, and let me try to copy this, come here to the controller as well, and let me try to throw out of this method as well. So what we did, when the product name is null, we are throwing a null pointer exception with the message called product name cannot be null, and we are throwing both of the we are throwing the exception out of both of the methods, insert product in the service and insert in the controller. Now how we can handle it? So if you want to handle the exception globally, then you have to use the risk controller or the controller advice annotation. Okay, if you want to handle this exception in this class itself, then you can handle it with the help of at the rate exception handler annotation. But what if the same exception is raised in different controllers? Then the again you have to write the code for the handling of that exception in that particular controller class. But this is not the way how we should be developing our application. So there would be a central approach or the global approach of handling the exceptions. If the same exception is coming, that will be going to this global exception handler and it will be handled. So for that, we are using the controller advice and the rest controller advice. Now let me try to create a package here, and let's say name is advice, or you can say exception handler, something like that. And here I'm just going to create a class called global exception handler. Okay. Now here I will try to show you the difference between the controller advice and the rest controller advice. So this time I'm just going to use the rest controller advice. Okay. And then I'm just going to handle the exception, which is null pointer exception in our case. So I'm just going to create a method, and let's say its return type is string, map of string. Okay. Let's say handle null pointer. Okay, something like that. And let's me try to make it public. Let me try to import the map first. And here we need to pass the exception that we are going to handle. So this time we are handling the null pointer exception. Okay. Now let me try to create a map. Okay, so copy this. Let's say error map equal to new hash map, and here in the error map I'm just going to put the message. Let's say the message is error message, and in the error message we are putting the value as the messages that we are passing from the null pointer exception. So you can see in the service where we are handling or where we are throwing the null pointer exception, we are passing one message which is product name cannot be null. So that will be coming here as a message, and this will be creating one record or one entity, or you can say one entry in the map which is having error message, and its value would be the message that we are returning in the null pointer exception. Okay, and now finally we are going to return the error map, and this is the method that is going to handle the exception. Okay, so we need to annotate this method with exception handler. Okay, and if you want to return the response, then you can also use response status, and let's say the value is internal server error, something like that. And in the exception handler, you have to provide the exception name. Okay, so this time we are throwing the null pointer exception, so you have to provide the exception name dot class here. That's it. So let me try to tell you. So when the exception is raised in the product service, then it is coming here to the global exception handler. Why it is coming here? Because this class is annotated with @controller advice. So it will come here, and then with the help of this method, this exception will be handled. Okay, so now let me try to run this application and try to show you the scenario where we are providing the null name, and then we'll see how it is doing. So our application is up. Now let me try to uh, go to the postman, and this time let me try to insert the product with name as null. So let me try to hit enter, and here you can see we are getting the response as error message, and in the message we have the product name cannot be null, and here you can see the status is 500, which is internal server error, which we have uh, put it here as a response status. So this is how we are handling the exception or global exception through the REST controller advice. And now comes the picture of controller advice, how you can use the controller advice to handle the exception. Or I will tell you what is the difference between the controller advice and the REST controller advice. So this time you can see how the REST controller advice is working. Now let me try to annotate this class with @controller advice and try to run this application. Okay, so just wait for a few seconds. Yeah, our application is up, and now if we'll go to the postman, try to hit it. And this time we are not getting the error message. We are getting the responses status is 500 and error is internal server error, and then this path. If you'll go to the IntelliJ and if you'll go down to the console, you will see. So here you can see when we are using @controller advice, this is not working as expected. This is not handling the exception globally, right? So it is showing, or it is throwing a servlet exception which is saying that circular view path would dispatch back to the current handler. Check your view resolver setup. So that means it is saying us to check your view resolver setup. That means it is expecting the view out of this method, right? So we should be annotating this with method with @response body. So in the start also I told you that the controller device plus response body what makes the REST controller device. Okay, so if you annotate this method with @response body and the class with @controller advice, then it will work like a REST controller advice, and this time it will globally handle the exception. Now let me try to run this application and try to hit the API again, and let's see how it is working. So our application is up. Now go to the postman and try to hit it, and this time you can see you are able to see the error message. That means exception is handled with the help of controller advice and the response body. Okay, so this is what the difference between REST controller advice and the controller advice. So controller advice plus response body makes the REST controller advice. How controller plus response body make the REST controller. Similarly, here in the exception handling, controller advice plus response body makes the REST controller advice. Okay, so this is about the difference between controller advice and the REST controller advice. If you like the video, please hit the like button and please subscribe the channel for more such content. I already have covered a lot more videos on the differences on my channel. You can go to the playlist and let me try to show you. Here you can see Spring Boot interview question, and here I have put couple of differences videos. So here you can see we have the REST controller, request parameter, path variable versus request parameter, request body versus response body, component versus bean. So you can watch both all of these videos and clear your interview. So thanks for the support and please subscribe the channel. Thanks.